Hi,
Hello.
Great to have you here. Thanks for joining. Maybe we can start where you just introduce yourself a little bit. What's your background and how your journey has led you to Germany?
Of course. So thank you for having me here. So my name is Likith. I come from a small city in India. It's a coastal city called Mangalore. So I grew up there. I did basically my whole studies up to my master's in mathematics in a Catholic school called St. Aloysius University. So after that, I was very much actually while I was in college, I was very much involved in sports, trying to improve the sports infrastructure, the teams in my local surroundings, and also watching a lot of sports got me very much excited about numbers and statistics and data. So that's what my basic academics lie in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what led me to pursue a further education in data analytics. So that's when I decided to move to Berlin and make my career and start my career actually for a fresh start in Berlin. So that's why I moved to Berlin and started studying a secondary master's in data analytics. And yeah.
How did it come about? Like what prompted you, and how did this? Because it's a big decision to say I'm going to leave my country and move to another country and pursue some degree abroad. Like what happened?
So it was it came to me out of the blue. Actually, I had a couple of my friends who were also interested in moving to let's say Europe. So we collectively decided that Germany was the place to be within Europe. Germany has a good infrastructure for education. We have free public universities. Has a good career opportunity after your education. So we did our research and eventually decided to come to Germany and specifically Berlin because it is very much open initially for foreign immigrant students. So that's how I landed up in Berlin, basically.
Cool, fascinating. And maybe kind of before you decided to come, what was your image of how it would be in Germany, and was it like you thought it would be, or was it different, or how did it go?
So initially, when we come to Berlin, or when we decide to come to Berlin, we obviously reach out to certain people who have already been here, or some of our network who've been here. So we really hear rumors about the different work conditions or different challenges that we have. So everything is a bit exaggerated. It has a different picture than what it actually is. So when I came here, the first thing that I saw was the challenges were there, but they were not as exaggerated as what it was painted to us by our different network people. So yes, there were hurdles, but when I came here, I found out that once they're done, you can basically have a great clear path towards whatever you want to be or whatever you wanted to learn or join a company or whatever. So yeah.
And what kind of challenges or hurdles did you kind of hear from others or have in mind?
So yeah, so the number one thing was Germany has a kind of a stereotype that the people are rude, people don't have humor, they don't speak English. So we heard these challenges and some extensions of these. For example, there would be a very much bias in terms of if you apply for certain jobs, you would not be selected based on that you're a foreigner, basically. So these were some of the exaggerated bits of hurdles that I heard. And then when I came here, it was not what I had found out, basically. So yeah, these were the hurdles.
Nice, makes sense. And I mean, it's been a while, but if you kind of walk back to the first couple of days or first week which you arrived here, what was some kind of a first experiences, or what was how did it start?
Right, yeah. So when I came here, the first thing, obviously, I had done quite a bit of research in how to start in Berlin. The first thing that was required to have was Anmeldung, because everything that we need to have, like for example, a bank account and our anything like tax identification number, all the bureaucratic stuff was tied to our Anmeldung. So that was a bit challenging because I'm thinking that there's different criteria for different cities, but especially in Berlin, it was quite challenging because there was no appointment. Immediately, we needed to have our blocked account to be released to our bank account. So bank account is the next step after our Anmeldung. So we need to have Anmeldung and then bank account and then the money that we need to survive in Berlin. So it gets a bit challenging in the first month and probably in the second month as well, because even if when you get the Anmeldung done, you would need to get a bank account, and these banks they have their own set of appointment dates that they give in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So it kind of extends your stay here without the money that you need to survive. So you would need basically some sort of cushion fund for the first 2 months in the case that you don't get your blocked account released sooner. So that was a challenge that I faced. I'm sure now there are like many more neobanks that kind of give you the opportunity to open your account seamlessly. So I guess now it's not that much of an issue that I had compared to when I came to Berlin.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you were to design some kind of a perfect welcome experience or like a kind of a toolkit all in one for new arrivals, how would you design it, or what do you think would be a good customer experience for people who come?
I would say maybe first of all would be a PDF that has all the links to the city that you're coming to. For example, for Berlin, I would have the bureaucratic links of Anmeldung, for the visa, for the tax office, and everything all bundled into one. So that would be my first thing. The second thing I would say is a toolkit. As a toolkit, I would have a guideline of how to do research into the next steps. For example, the first step would be to find a part-time job or to find a means of income for your survival in the first 2 years as a student. A guide to how to get these jobs, or on a guide how to get those skills required to clear those jobs. So maybe these are the top 2 things that I would do. And also maybe a third point would be how to navigate the insurances and take care of your health, and if you don't have if you let's say you fall sick, and how to navigate the insurances, because you might end up paying more than what you're supposed to pay.
How is that? Like how does it work with the insurance?
So I've had to deal with my fair share of problems with my insurances. So many of the students that come here in Berlin or in Germany, they're given a statutory or a public insurance, health insurance, which you pay monthly. And then let's say you go to a part-time or any other job that you find, let's say a working student or something. So immediately there may be a situation where you may have to pay the insurance by yourself, while the company tells you that they have paid the insurance by themselves. So there's a lot of knowledge gap that many of the students, they don't know what really is an insurance. So many people end up not paying the insurance while thinking that their company is paying or their employers are paying. So you might eventually have to pay like a huge lump sum of let's say 1,000 euros because you failed to pay for the period of employment that you had. So also, if you have like different ailments related to your eyeglasses or your dental insurance, it's not covered. So these are the knowledge gaps that people kind of don't know and will not have the time to research, or to you will eventually find out once you have already paid the certain amount of money. And these are the kind of amounts, these are the kind of money that you can save, and it's very crucial for your survival in the first 1 or 2 years as a student.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And even with the employer, they never pay everything. They pay maximally 50% of the cost, and the other 50% needs to be paid. And it's kind of complicated. It's really, even for people born and raised here, it's still somewhat complicated.
It's a bit complicated, yeah.
Makes sense. Clear. Okay. In terms of coverage, how would Germany compare to India?
For health insurance, I wouldn't say we have a great coverage of health insurance. It is not a mandatory one.
Mm-hmm.
So
you don't have to have
we don't need to have a health insurance or any kind of insurance except for the vehicle insurance. So I think the vehicle insurance is the only mandatory one in India. So it's the notion of insurance is kind of not familiar if you compare to India versus Germany.
And Germany, I think, is the most over-insured country, like the country with the most insurance per person. You can literally insure your, mobile phone and your furniture and anything you can imagine.
Exactly.
There's an insurance for it.
Right. And over the time, I've also had my share of insurances. Like I have a liability insurance, I have a dental insurance and so on. So you kind of feel the need to buy insurances because, it's kind of becomes a necessary part of your life at one point.
This is quite an interesting area to consider and source of complexity.
Yep.
Cool. Maybe on a kind of next step a bit further. So you studied here.
Yep.
And then maybe talk briefly about how the studying went, and then also particularly the kind of leap from the studying into the job market. How did this go? What was hard about it, and generally, like, what's your thoughts on this?
Okay, so this question is kind of a different one for me because, as I mentioned earlier, my master's in mathematics was already done in India. So this was a secondary master's for me, which is often quite different for the majority of the students that come from India or any other country to Germany, where it is often that it's their first master's or their first bachelor's or any other studies that they're doing. So my first goal was, since I already have a master's, I have quite a good of education behind me. My point of start was immediately when I joined my master's year. I started looking for employment opportunities, be it a working student or a part-time job in a corporate office, which is related to the studies, which is related to the area that I wanted to work in, right? So that's what I.
So you're saying the master's was more to kind of get a foothold, not so much to get the knowledge. Knowledge you already had quite a lot and like competencies, but more as a way to make your first kind of foothold here,
exactly.
and then from there on go into the labor market.
Yes, it's a dual thing. So it gave me a foothold in Berlin. So it gave me a starting point to get myself ready for the eventual joining of the labor force in Germany, right? So the master's gave me the leverage to study and extend my technical skills, but at the same time, it also gave me a kind of a time period to understand what the job market looks like, how I can fine-tune my skills, communication skills, what actually is needed, what application strategies work. So I kind of started early on when I started studying. I started early on to apply to different jobs to see what works and what does not work. Yeah.
Makes sense. No, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's a saying, Germany is in dire need of high-skilled labor, Fachkräftemangel, as we say.
Mm-hmm.
Did this match your kind of experience, or how would you see the labor market from this point of view?
So that's a great question, and it's true that Germany needs skilled workers, and I've already found a job, which means that for my particular skill set, there was a job that eventually I found. So in my particular case, yes, there is a need for skilled workers, and what really ended up being true was that you need to be more than skilled to be employed in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is you would find hundreds of people with the equal amount of skill. What sets you apart is how you fit into the company that you're applying for. So to set you apart, there would always be a cultural fit or a secondary round of interviews with the hiring manager and so on. So they look beyond skill as well. So Germany needs skilled workers. We are getting skilled students who eventually graduate into skilled workers. But I would say Germany kind of eventually rewards students or professionals who are beyond skilled in terms of the criteria that I mentioned before.
And this cultural fit is super interesting. This cultural fit, you think it's particularly a challenge for international students who need to kind of fit both within the broader German culture and the specific company culture, or how do you see this kind of from an international point of view?
Right. So as an international student, you're having so many hurdles, like navigating the job market. Getting an interview would be the first challenge, which is already harder, right? So once you get an interview, these are the challenges that are really, I would say, hard to navigate as an international student, because understanding the culture of Germany is quite hard in itself. You would need to understand how to learn the German language, or once you learn the German language, you need to speak it fluently, which is also quite challenging. And even if you know German, it does not mean that you're a great fit at the company level, right? So each company has its own values. They have their own culture. They have their own structure that's going on, and each company has its own team. So you would need to fit the team. You would need to fit the culture of the company, and overall the culture. You need to integrate yourself into the country as well. So I would say, yeah, there are layers of challenges, and then skill comes at the first level, which I think many people have already and they're developing. But yeah, they would also need to navigate further into the subsequent challenges that I mentioned.
Maybe make it even more concrete. Like if you have two candidates and they both on paper have the right qualification, but one of them does get the job because they fit with the company kind of vibe and culture, and the other one doesn't get the job because they don't fit. What differs here? Is it more of a, and like, what exactly would you say is a difference between the kind of good fit and the not good fit?
I would say the specific part about the vibing with the team, vibing with the culture of the company and so on, I would say that needs to be emphasized more here, because as a student or as a young professional entering the job market, you wouldn't necessarily have the necessary personality or the adaptive skills to match different teams, different interviewing styles, different hiring managers, right? So you would need to have that skill of adaptability, which I think many of the young professionals lack. Even I had to work on it a lot to adapt my talking skills, to communication skills to different companies, and to match their particular requirements, which you need to kind of figure out on your own, because you will understand it once you start giving more and more interviews. And I had to figure it out once I started giving more and more interviews, and eventually I found what they like based on the body language, based on how they replied to your different questions. Yeah, that's how you kind of figure it out.
Is there like a trend? Would you say, like, kind of, I don't know, big companies have a very different vibe from smaller ones, or does it just completely depend company by company, or how would you say it works?
Yeah, so in Berlin especially, there are a lot more startups than I've had the experience of interviewing more with startups than big companies. But I would say big companies usually tend to hire more skilled people, more experienced people rather than students. That's what I have seen. That's what, I mean, I am not sure about the data itself, but if you're a young professional, then you have a more likelihood of joining a startup than a big company. So, and these startups, they tend to care more about how you work under pressure, how you are adaptable, how you communicate, how you present yourself. And this is on top of the actual skills that you already have. So I would say, yeah, you would need to adapt to different companies, but you can categorize them as startups versus big companies. And yeah, maybe big companies, they don't really need you to be as of a culture fit, but more of a experienced professional.
Cog in the machine.
Yeah, a cog in the machine.
Okay, makes sense. Maybe if you say you interviewed with a couple of companies, sometimes Germany also has the reputation of being the country with a fax machine. Like, is there any particular hiring process, or things which you realized, wow, this is quite outdated and anachronistic, or any particular anecdotes where you saw some things which are surprising?
Not really. So Germany is quite advanced in terms of hiring processes. There's so far I've never had to give in-person interviews or any of the. I'm not really sure what outdated in terms of interviews are, but so far most of the interviews that I've given is just plain video call interviews I had to give when I was interviewing, and I would say the challenge right now is that the interview processes take, I would say, 45 days to 60 days. So that's 2 months of the one interview process. That's what it used to take, and I'm sure it's quite the same now. What I would like to be improved here is for the companies to, kind of speed up the process a bit. Maybe make it to 30 days or even less than that, because as a student, you would often have only 1 or 2 companies that are really interested in you. And if those companies take around 45 days, then those 45 days mean a lot to you. So you could be dedicating your resources to applying to some other companies and increasing your chances of eventually landing an offer.
Makes complete sense. And I suppose if you're saying you're particularly in the Berlin startup ecosystem in the application, that's probably also the most modern way. I remember some 15 years back when I just out of high school was applying for a bank and working for a bank. At this time, it was still standard to give the occupation of your mother and father in your own CV, and like things which I thought was like, wow, this is outdated. But I think on the one hand side, the time moved on, and on the other hand side, the more startup and fresh the company is, the less stuffy the process.
Yep, that's true. Actually, I've also faced similar experiences, but not like the intensive details of your occupation of your mother and father. But I think the more older the company and more mature the company, the hiring processes are not updated. So these companies tend to require you to give most of your details manually. So you would need to update all of your educational documents manually into their server, and this probably takes up to 1 hour of work just to apply for one company. And I would say that's the chances of getting an interview in these larger companies are very slim. So there's a lot of work just to be ended up not having an interview.
Fair enough. Yeah, probably also because all the applications go there. Everybody wants to work for Mercedes and BMW and so on. Maybe on the higher level now, kind of comparing professional life in Germany to what you thought it would be. How does it compare? Anything which is I don't know, better than expected or worse than expected, or what was your kind of image of how professional life would be as opposed to how it turned out?
So I've had a great experience so far. So what I initially thought when I was a student was the first thing that came to my mind was to just get a job, right? So that's I think that's the common thing that comes to most of the students' mind, is to finally end up with a job, and they don't care about the actual job itself. Like, is it a fit? Do you like to do that job? Would you like the company? Nobody thinks that way. But once you end up with a job, you start comparing what it really means to be in the company. So you start thinking about the actual experience itself. And so far, what I've experienced is a great working with great colleagues, working with people who I consider my mentors, right? So I've had the opportunity to learn a lot, and this was actually expected because I had done my research in how the work culture looks compared to back in India. I'm sure like it's quite known how the work culture is not up to the standard of Germany in India. So I experienced the actual truth. The reality is that in Germany, you have a great work-life balance. You're not pressured as much as what you expect. So I think the bottom line is, as a foreigner, you kind of put yourself in more pressure than your company itself. So you kind of set targets for yourself to prove that you belong with the company. So that kind of eventually makes it harder for you to. You're kind of hard on yourself to prove. I think to the company, but I think in the other hand, the companies are great. They don't really put much pressure on you to perform or like additional. I mean, of course, there are constraints for you to perform when compared to other colleagues in the company, but you're not expected to be the sole solo warrior within the company. You're measured equally.
Yeah, I wonder, how does it connect to hierarchy? As in, like, some companies are more hierarchical, as in, like, the boss says exactly what is to be done and how it's to be done, and then you do it by the deadline. And others are a bit less hierarchical, where there's almost an expectation that you dissent if there's a bad idea. Like, how would you think about this one in the kind of context of your experience in Germany?
So my experience is not so vast and extensive, but from what I've seen so far, the managers are quite liberal. They let you do your work. They don't micromanage you, and that has had a great result from my performance. I've had a great outputs from my work because of this, because you don't have a constant neck breathing on you while you're working, right? So you have a flexibility to experiment, to bring up your ideas, your own spin on the task. So that kind of gives you an advantage, really, to be more creative, to be more agile on the long run. So you kind of know different angles that you wouldn't otherwise if you had like a strict hierarchical manager, let's say.
Cool. No, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe if we zoom out to the big picture, if you were in charge of Germany for a second, and you could kind of handle immigration or education or labor policy, what changes would you do, or what would you implement?
Yeah, so let's say the reality within Germany is that the language of is needed. The German language is quite necessary for you to navigate different facets of life. So I would make it very easier for students or for working professionals to access the language of German very easily. So right now it's kind of scattered all over the place. So you have different sources where some of my friends they're taking private tutoring from German tutors. Some take online classes. Some take language courses from Fachhochschule or some similar institutes. So it's not really sure. It's kind of ambiguous at the moment, and it's a part of the immigration that is not focused on a lot. So it's kind of becomes an optional for student when they're studying to learn German, but it's kind of important once you move into your corporate life. Once you get a job, it kind of becomes important, or once you get a family here, it kind of becomes more important. Once you go to the immigration office, or let's say if you go to the doctors or something like that, then it becomes more important. So I would say making German more accessible for the ones who are coming into Germany, maybe in the first 1 or 2 years, to make it more accessible, make it more more clear that German is needed for the students. I mean, everyone knows that German is needed, but the execution part, I would say, is not done.
And the studying you can do in English, and it kind of works a while, but it doesn't work forever at some point.
Yeah, eventually you would say, yeah, I will learn German eventually, but you never end up learning it. So yeah,
makes a lot of sense. So kind of just put more focus on this one.
Yeah,
makes sense. Cool. No, thanks. Maybe another one kind of connected to this. So Germany is making tuition fee very cheap, almost free for international students as well as domestic students, and is trying to attract international talents. Do you think it's also doing enough to keep the talent which is being trained in Germany, or are we essentially in many cases training people for other countries' labor market? Maybe also from, I mean, on your case, you're obviously here, but maybe you can talk about fellow classmates or how things are going. Is there some of them which kind of move to greener pastures, or what's your take on this?
So yes, so there are like multiple ways in which I can answer this question. So there are a couple of examples that I can give where the students did not end up liking the way the job market works, the way how difficult the integration is, and so on. So the challenges are there, right? So they had to face a lot of challenges. So you would need a mental edge to face these challenges, to overcome these challenges. You would need to strategize accordingly for the different problems that you get. For example, learning of the language, you would need to prioritize it. For example, learning of different skills that I mentioned earlier for the job market, you would need to prioritize learning it and plan it accordingly. So most of the students, that what they end up doing when they come to Berlin or overall in Germany is that they skip these parts, and then they move into working part-time to support themselves early on, which kind of hinders their ability to gain valuable experience, eventually to land a full-time opportunity. So because they have to do all of these different part-time jobs, they will eventually not have the necessary skills to land a job, and then eventually have their visas expire or have certain other hurdles. So yes, in a way, once you get into the labor market, it gets kind of easier. I wouldn't say super easy, but it gets easier. But to get to the first job, it is quite hard, I would say, as of now.
Makes sense. And that people go to other labor markets instead, that they kind of
yes,
go to the Netherlands or US or UK. You think it happens, or not so much in your personal environment? In my personal environment, it does happen, because Germany kind of competes with the English-speaking countries like UK, US, or I think even in the Netherlands there is a quite acceptance for English-speaking than Germany. Then you also have Canada and Australia, so which are kind of the alternative sources of employment. So yes, there are some people who kind of come to Germany as a backup, and then they already have their main plan as to go to like Canada or US or Australia. So yeah, I think it depends on the overall global market. Like right now, the US is not favorable, so maybe the German market, it kind of becomes more favorable. So yes, in my personal environment, it has happened that students they did not find jobs, and they move out of Germany to find better opportunities elsewhere. Some people even go to Poland, for example. It has an emerging job market there. So yeah, that's pretty much the summary there. Makes sense. And for you personally, if you fast forward 5 years, do you see yourself in Berlin or elsewhere, or what's your kind of personal situation? My
plan currently is to be in Berlin for the long run, because I know what the current market is. I can almost guarantee my success in the future in Berlin, whereas in other parts of Germany it would be unknown for me. So that would bring more additional challenges. But yeah, I see myself working in Berlin in the long run. Yeah.
Makes sense. And now if you kind of look back all these years when you first made the decision to come, and you were to kind of tell your younger self some tips or some hints, or some people who are in your shoe, like in these shoes now, kind of wondering if they should make the jump, what would your recommendation be, or tips be, or message?
So I would say, yeah, definitely go for it, because right now I don't really consider the initial challenges to be the actual challenges, right? So the getting of the Anmeldung, the bureaucratic stuff, and all of that, that's a necessary part, I would say, in my opinion, a necessary part of moving to Berlin or Germany in the overall. So I would definitely say go for it, but I would also give a message that you would need to do maybe double, triple check, or maybe more than that, the amount of research that needs to be done. So you would need to be very much aware of the housing that you're going to get, and all of those other things before coming to Berlin. It's very hard, but at the same time, if you already are aware of different scenarios, different plans, and so on, so you can never be too prepared, is what I would say. And then eventually, once you find a job, then the struggle is how to maintain this job, how to upskill yourself, and so on. So the first part of the challenge is over. Now the second part of the challenge is, how to be professional, how to jump, how to climb the hierarchy, how to be a manager, and so on, depending on your goals. So yeah, how to perfectly position yourself in a way that you're successful in the future.
Amazing. This is extremely interesting. Thanks a lot. I think this is quite valuable for everyone listening. Big thanks for taking the time.
Of course.
Extremely relevant, and let's definitely wrap it up here. And thank you for this.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.